Welcome. I am so excited to introduce you all to Faith Clarke, who is an organizational health and inclusion specialist. And she works with organizations that are committed to healthy workplace culture. She helps people by creating systems that integrate human motivation. And we share the belief that the strength of your team is dependent on your work ecosystem. Faith and I met online quite a few months ago and decided to get together to have a series of conversations around workplace rituals and the benefits of belonging, how that decreases turnover. Our conversation goes into a lot of really interesting areas. So I'm excited to bring this conversation to you. I have a question that I'm getting a lot from people, and I would love to ask it of you, which is, what does it mean to decolonize work? Like, what is the legacy of colonization that is a part of the workplace and these systems? And so how does decolonization work in the workplace?
So I have a full interview series on all of that. People can
we can link to that.
And yes, go and listen to everybody, explore it, because the thing is that the effect of colonization across the world has been both consistent and then varied, right? And so it feels reductive to kind of just say this and this and this. I will say a few things, but just to understand that these are just like examples, because the way it shows up in different environments can vary.
Okay.
And just as my own human like identity, I'm Afro-Caribbean immigrant, and in Jamaica, where I'm from, colonization was experienced differently because my ancestors or people were stolen and put on the land that was also stolen from other people, right? Mm-hmm. And that's a little bit different from what has happened in the US, which is more settlers. It was settler colonization here, and I like kind of experienced a different kind. Anyway, there are a couple of threads that are consistent. This idea that knowledge, what's the right way of doing things, is determined by this person, then that person is a person in power. So the person who steals the land, steals the people, steals labor, etc., that person is the person who knows this one way of doing things. And that person is the person that has the highest value. And so a value hierarchy of humans is like a byproduct of this whole colonization, taking property and repurposing it for profit, for other people's profit. So the valuable people get the profit, get the resources, and the not valuable people don't get it. So when we start to look at how decisions are made in the workplace, the hierarchy of salaries in the workplace, the sense, like we were talking earlier about who has some autonomy, who doesn't. Some people get to be able to work with walls and some people don't. And that has nothing to do with how people work, well, type of work that people are doing. It's about the perceived sense of value. People get bigger real estate when they are more valuable. All of those things feel like the tenets of the old systems, that hierarchical structure. Also, the people with the value get to say how things are done. And it's not that the person who owns the business and has the vision shouldn't say how things are done, but it is more that there's a sense of who knows the right way, and low value people don't. That's just kind of how it is. And so this whole issue of having voice or not having voice in the workplace is a part of the thread of colonization, or part of what needs to be healed with decolonization. And I think this sense of extractive work, because colonization was an extraction, it was a taking, and it was a violent taking. And so work being extractive and that being okay. It doesn't, I've bought an hour of your time, you do whatever it is that I ask, I own you for this hour. there is this sense of extraction versus the model I've been trying to get people to listen to more, ecosystems and symbiotic relationships where we're together. And we know that there's a mutual win-win, and we knew there's a mutual give and take, and it's happening all the time. That is not a product of colonization. So there was no honoring the land. I mean, if you think even about how this whole movement to kind of heal our relationship with the earth, well, the settler, the people who came in and took the land away, in essence, were violent with the land as well. And violent with our own sense of being nature. Humans are nature, land is nature, and we basically took from it for profit. So having a model of work and in a relationship to work and to the people who work with us, not for us, that is symbiotic and reciprocal. And people say to me, oh yeah, but I pay them, so of course it's symbiotic. But that's to assume that money is the only thing, and that allows me, that gives me permission to extract everything from people, right? Makes it transactional. So having that kind of extractive relationship, that's also a symbol, a pain of the colonization experience that we've all lived through.
And the value of the hierarchy of the amount of money that goes to different people in the organization means that the person who's trading their time for just money is receiving less when they're, entry level, or they're just starting out, or they're, in one of these positions that is often more high touch and more customer facing and more technically difficult than some of the sort of higher level managing or directing kind of positions. And
so for this point here about the fact that we all know the cost of a client, right? But this person who we're paying $15 an hour has the absolute power to shut down a lot of our client facing business. But we don't value when they come in and they support somebody and they help, they're kind to our clients and people feel loved and cared for by them. That's profit into the business. And we aren't honoring that as profit when we say, oh, okay, no benefits, you get the least amount of time off. In essence, we've, treated line staff as the people to get control the most.
I've worked in restaurants for many years as an HR manager, and definitely, just saw that disparity in how the kitchen is treated. Kitchen doesn't make tips and wages are really low, and it's a real tough environment, and it's all the food that's going out. It's what people are eating. It's the reason people are there, really is to like experience a meal. And yeah, it's amazing. I'm working with a group right now that is seeing inequity in the way that compensation is happening in the labor market. They did a study to find out, how their pay compares to what other people are paying. And what they're finding is that the more highly paid positions are being paid more, and the middle is being squished and staying the same, and the bottom is creeping up a tiny bit. And that is, equity is a value of this organization. And so that doesn't feel equitable to them. They're not going to do that. So then it's like, there's this, they're seeing that the systems that are used and the systems of the past they don't fit with the values that they have. And so then they need to create a new future that also make sure that they're still attracting the kinds of people that, they want to be working with. And so it's a complex, challenge or a solution to come up with. And it requires thinking in a way that is different from just defaulting to what you're supposed to be doing.
Yeah. This defaulting to what we're supposed to be doing. I was up to recently in a doctoral program, and I'd been a doctoral student for 8 years. So that's 8, and then graduate school before that, and then undergrad, and then, all the elementary school. The educational system is one of the largest purveyors of colonial thought, which basically says there is a right way. We know it, and we're teaching it to you. And so we've all learned that way. And so now that we are faced with, wait, okay, this is the wrong way. So what's the right way? And everybody I've spoken to is like, Faith, we just don't know how to do this. And it's like, here it's the perfect opportunity for us, but it's scary to figure it out, to actually say, everybody's looking for a reference point, everybody's looking for a standard. Every paper I wrote, I had to find somebody else's thought that backed up my thought before my thought could be valid. So none of us have this internal kind of reinforcing mechanism that says, no, actually my thought could just be valid, right? My thought could just be a worthwhile, the thing I know could just be worthwhile all on its own. Even saying that, I feel quite arrogant, right? Because that's just not the way things are. And for us to heal our relationship with work, and for our companies to grow and actually be part of the way we heal the world and each other, because what we're doing now is just so not sustainable financially or in any other way, then we all have to be willing to say, we're going to figure this out, and we're going to figure it out in pockets. We're going to figure it out for this team, for this company, and we're going to keep figuring it out here. And we're not going to be hyper focused on an outside reference unless that outside reference looks like us. And then and as we do this, then we'll start to have some models of how to do it. But we can't keep the need to find the outside reference is a symptom of the supremacist systems that we've inherited.
I work with a lot of smaller organizations that receive their nonprofits, or they receive public funding. And often there is this idea that we should be doing what the county does, or we should do what the bigger organization does. Like, we're supposed to be reflecting those best practices or whatever it is. And I just see that as such a shame, because you're the smaller organization. You have the opportunity to be experimental, to do things in a different way, to create the change that goes up the chain. And
that's how it's always been. And so we're in an unfortunate position because, you know, the large entities, that the larger organizations were small organizations. They were innovative for the time that they were in, doing whatever work they were in, and then they grew to this stable and maybe stagnant place where change is hard. But we know that change happens in the corners, in the edges, on the margins, and in the streets. That's where change happens. So small businesses are absolutely the space where this will flip around, and that will help us heal. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for this conversation.
You are welcome.
Is there anything else that comes to mind that you wanted to share that we didn't already talk about?
Well, I think, you know, if we're to think about what are the skills that are needed to build healthy human rituals and routines, I do think it starts with honoring yourself. I think we can't include in other people more of what we don't include in ourselves, and we can't support other people beyond the ways that we support ourselves. We will criticize other people for their need for support because we don't allow ourselves to be supported. And so the part of this healing process has to be, what are the ways that I'm nourishing me? What are the ways that I'm caring for the parts of me that don't get seen? What are the ways that I am using my voice? And what are the ways that I'm supporting me when I feel like I can't have my voice? And then how do I include one other person in that? And that could be practicing at home. It could be practicing with somebody that reports to you. It could be practicing in your team. How can it's just 4 of us? And I met with a team recently, and I was like, you are 5 supervisors. How do you, between you, build even more safety? And I think this is best done for teams that already feel safe with each other, to then acknowledge, you know, although we feel safe here, we're also hiding. And if we can just notice, oh, I am hiding, I am masking who I really am, and then practice that, then we have a shot at including the person who has a chronic illness, has fibro, has whatever is going on for them in the workplace, has some difference that we don't know how to include, a Black woman, a person with autism. So I think that it's not a call. Yes, it's a call to look outward, but it is a call to look inward and just say, where have I been complicit, especially for those of us with privilege? Where have I been complicit with the marginalization and with the tendencies to value some more than others? Recently, a friend and I were having this conversation about, in our Caribbean context, children who were born between two parents that are married have higher value than their siblings who were born to parents who were not married. So one of the parents has a child outside of the marital relationship, and the children in the marital relationship know that they have more value than the children outside the marital relationship, to the point where said
Mm.
children are called illegitimate. And it's like our very language tells us that we are kind of participating in this supremacist system. So just kind of doing that inner work and just saying, where am I complicit with this? And then how is this showing up in my relationship to myself and in my work is absolutely, it's scary, but it's absolutely the place to start.
Yeah, it's essential. Thank you again. Faith and I have put together a couple of resources for you all. The first one is a way to estimate your turnover. It's a turnover calculator, and the link for that is below. The other offering is from Faith, and that is a workshop for you and your team around ways to reduce turnover and how to get at the root cause of it and make it stop. So the links to those are below. There are a couple of questionnaires, and we would love to hear from you if this has sparked an interest in you and might be something that you would like to work on.